We have some big news on the NHL waiver wire. We have some key NHL veterans who very well could be claimed on waivers today. Plus, we have some other injury notes and updates. We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have some fairly significant news, I think, from the NHL waiver wire. First up, yesterday's waiver placement, James Neal has indeed cleared. No big surprise there with the contract and lack of production. As I mentioned yesterday, I really did not expect James Neal to be claimed by anybody, so he has cleared. So the Oilers will have more flexibility now for the next month to be able to move him to the taxi squad. So we can either go 30 days or 10 games, whatever comes first, before he needs waivers again to be able to be reassigned. So obviously, like I said, more flexibility for them, and they can move him back and forth, get more guys in the lineup. Now, the waiver wire today has some pretty interesting players on it, and I would not be shocked if tomorrow, noon Eastern, when the announcements come out about the waiver wire, if we find out that one or two of these guys actually ends up getting claimed. So we will see. First up, we have the newly traded and acquired by the Carolina Hurricanes, Alex Galchenyuk, just traded yesterday from Ottawa, along with Cedric Paquette for Ryan Dzingel. The Canes have placed him on waivers immediately, so therefore they fully intend, if they're going to have to keep him, they want to place him on the taxi squad. So that's obviously a way for them to also free up some cap space. If they bury Galchenyuk's contract either in the minors or on the taxi squad, and of course Dzingel was making more than Paquette, they free up well over $1 million in salary cap space. So that allows them more flexibility to maybe add in other areas as well. So certainly, like I said yesterday, for Dzingel, he wasn't really a main piece for them, somebody they could part with. Paquette gives them a whole different dynamic, somebody who can play bottom six, good on faceoffs, won a Stanley Cup before, known to be a relatively decent defensive forward. So at the same time, like I said, they get a different dynamic player and save a bunch of money in the process. So that was a good deal for them. But in the case of Alex Galchenyuk, his career is certainly spiraling towards an end, I have to think. But as soon as we said that before, and he keeps finding new life and getting new opportunities. So we'll see if the opportunities continue to go here. But I guess one caveat as well is where he was playing on a Canadian team for the Ottawa Senators, he has not traveled yet to meet up with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's remained in Canada, and he will do so until the waiver wire claims are announced tomorrow, so he knows where he's going. But if he is claimed by another Canadian team, they could add him to their lineup immediately and not have to go through a quarantine phase since he's already in the country. But if he goes unclaimed, then he will go to Carolina and join them, which I believe as well he won't have to quarantine based on their local rules. It's going to be very different here for Carolina to get their new guys in the lineup way faster than the Sens to get Dzingel with the stricter rules in the Canadian provinces here. So we'll see what happens with Galchenyuk. Like I said, since he was traded from Montreal for Max Domi, he went from Arizona. He's played for Minnesota. He's played for Pittsburgh. He went to Ottawa. Now he's on his way to Carolina. That's like 6 teams in 7 years, I believe it is. Never really got his groove going with Ottawa. Scored 1 goal. It was a really nice goal in the power play, wicket shot, but never really able to duplicate that and wasn't not getting a chance to play on a consistent basis. So if he's not going to get a chance to play on a consistent basis with the Sens, who are rebuilding, then that doesn't bode well for many other teams as well. So we'll see what happens with Alex Galchenyuk, but I say he likely clears, goes to Carolina, ends up on their taxi squad. Another very interesting piece, though, would be Paul Byron, Montreal Canadiens alternate captain, who's been with the Habs for a long time, who they actually picked up off waivers from the Flames many moons ago, and turned out to be a wonderful claim that they got for nothing, basically. It's kind of fallen out of favor, if you will. We know that the Habs have made some tough decisions, like, for example, Claude Julien scratched as a healthy scratch last night Thomas Tatar, which I found quite surprising. So it goes to show that when they were losing a few games there, that they have high expectations and they really want to send the message that they needed to play better, and certain types of lack of production, I guess, is not going to be tolerated given the options they have with a deep roster. I know many people have said the Habs are like a juggernaut right off the bat, and they were playing like one, but it's early. There's still a lot of teams they haven't played enough to really see how they stack up. Clearly, a team like the Maple Leafs gives them a hard go, and it very well could be Toronto, Montreal near the top of the division, battling for that last spot. It's a real possibility, which is fun for, I know, a lot of fans in Canada as well. But we saw last night the Habs end up beating the Leafs, but it was a really close game. They had a late comeback to get it done. But Byron, of course, like I said, hasn't really been a big factor for them. Now, I wonder if a team like Ottawa might look to claim Byron. A couple things there, like I mentioned with Galchenyuk, he's already in Canada, so they would actually be able to get him in their lineup right away. He's 31 years old. He's from Ottawa, so it might not be bad for him to be a bit of a homecoming. So there's that aspect of it. And then, of course, at the same time, even though they've been wanting to move out some veterans, he's probably a better veteran than a lot of the other guys that they've had and are trying to move out. So, he comes with a bit of a contract, though. $3.4 million. Still has a couple of years left on his contract. Ottawa's one of the few teams who could take on that cap hit. So, he's a bottom six guy with a lot of speed, can kill penalties, can be dangerous shorthanded. He might be a player that interests them. So if anybody claims him, I would think they would be near the top of that list. But I guess we will see what happens with Paul Byron in the Montreal Canadiens, if he'll still be a Montreal Canadien after this time tomorrow. Only time will tell. Now, some other names as well. We have Danny Dekeyser of the Detroit Red Wings is on waivers. Of course, he's now over the age of 30 as well. The left shot defenseman is kind of lost his way. He was injured a lot last year, only played a handful of games. He's played 10 games this year with 1 assist. Obviously, I think the injuries have taken its toll on Dekeyser over the years. He has this year and one more additional year left at $5 million. That's not an overly attractive contract the way that he's played, so the odds of him being claimed are probably slim. I mean, Detroit and teams like, near the bottom of the list with the cap space are some of the few teams who could take that on, and I just don't see there really being a great fit. You never know, but I'd be surprised if anybody takes a chance on Danny Dekeyser with that contract. Maybe he could be a buyout candidate with 1 year left on his deal going into the offseason here. So I guess we'll see what happens. But Dekeyser's another interesting name out there. And of course, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets with Swedish defenseman Gabriel Carlsson. He's left shot, 6'5", only 24 years old. Has 3 pro seasons under his belt, mostly in the AHL. A limited amount of NHL action, but given what he could be, I would be quite surprised if an NHL team did not take a chance to grab him. There's plenty of teams that we've heard in the rumor mill looking to add on defense. We've seen injuries piling up for certain teams. Said he's young. He's got lots of potential. He still has a cheap contract, which is also good. When you're making under $1 million, it makes it a lot easier for teams to take you on. So there's that aspect of things, which is beneficial. And like I said, his size, the frame that comes with him. Now, he's not overly big for 6'5". He's only around 200 pounds, which really might sound like a bit, but he's, it's a thin, lean 200 pounds at 6'5", but still, the Swedish defenseman, I think, has potential, has promise. The Blue Jackets have just had a pretty deep blue line for most of the time he's been there, and he hasn't been able to crack a regular spot yet. So he's certainly a player I would not be shocked if a team took a chance and put in a claim on. A few other injury updates as well. We saw the Washington Capitals assign goaltender Ilya Samsonov to the minors. Obviously, that's more than anything to give him a chance to play. We know Samsonov's been off now for a few weeks. He was one of the 4 players involved with the Capitals when they ended up getting a fine due to breaking protocols, but he also, I believe, was a positive case with COVID. He was on the COVID protocol list for an extended time, so he obviously needs to play and kind of do some almost like a rehab stint, you could call it, to get his legs under him and get some game action before he plays at the NHL. So Vanacek and Craig Anderson, we got to hold down the fort at the NHL level for the next little while. So hard to say exactly how long he stays down there. I wouldn't suspect it'd be too long. I would think it'd probably only be a few games, but thankfully they have the option here to send him down. They don't need waivers. They could have done it as a condition, for rehab purposes as well if they really needed to, I suppose. But so Samsonov goes down to the minors for now. For the Maple Leafs, Joe Thornton's coming back. He'll be in their lineup in their next game tomorrow. So obviously his rib injury is all healed up. Now the Leafs also made some different roster moves as well, including sending guys like Rasmus Sandin and Nick Robertson down to the AHL Toronto Marlies. Now, obviously Robertson started the season on the NHL roster, got hurt, so he's obviously ready to play again as well. So that's not as big a deal for him, but when it comes to Sandin, he's a player that's been reported to be kind of trying to stay patient, but losing his patience a little bit, wanting to get an NHL opportunity. Of course, with the additions that the Maple Leafs made on the blue line, including Mikko Lehtinen, it's kind of, limited his ability to get some action in here. Now, they reported on Saturday headlines, Chris Johnson was saying that Sandin probably is not going to be down there too long. Like, we're not at a stage where he's demanding a trade or anything like that, but they've mentioned it a few times in those segments that his patience is kind of running a little thin, and he wants to be able to play at the NHL level. We saw him before really play and kind of fit in nicely, not really look out of place. So he's not going to gain a whole lot from playing additional time in the AHL. So we will see. And they just kind of mentioned it as a situation to monitor. We'll see what happens. But you never know when it comes to NHL action. They could be facing an injury situation anytime. But the Leaf blue line's actually been playing a lot better. They've been getting better play from guys like Hall and Dermott especially. Justin Hall's really solidified himself in a top 4 spot, which is kind of, that's a big part of the problem why guys like Sandin and Liljegren hasn't been able to get more opportunities. Throw in Mikko Lehtinen, who came over from Europe, who was pretty darn good himself, and kind of creates a logjam there. So maybe at some point we'll see the Leafs move a defenseman, but they're probably not in any hurry given the fact that teams want depth when they're heading into the playoffs. So it may not be until the offseason unless somebody or something forces their hand. So let me know your thoughts on all these potential waiver claims and these roster moves here, and we'll discuss down below in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.